ABC, an alphabet of dolls from A to Z, a selection of dolls themed by alphabetical order. This is a bold doll personal selection and is not in any way intended to be comprehensive. A is for Action Man, made by Palitoy Limited in the UK. Action Man was first introduced in the UK by Palitoy of Colville, Leicestershire in 1966. The first 3 figures available in toy shops in Great Britain comprised a gay fantasy figure trio of Action Soldier, Action Sailor and Action Pilot. They were outfitted with the most basic of uniforms, a tiny training manual, equipment manual, star card and metal dog tag, all packaged in an appealing cardboard box closed with sellotape. To get him truly ready for action, all of the Army, Navy and Air-themed uniforms, equipment and vehicles had to be bought from a ready-made US-styled range based on G.I. Joe's accessories. He was an immediate hit, and he became the National Association of Toy Retailers' Boys Toy of the Year in 1966. G.I. Joe, his $4 American cousin, was launched in the US 2 years earlier by Hasbro. Despite initial fears that the toy would be viewed as a doll for boys, it had a resounding success. They coined the Action Man name as the US name G.I. Joe was not a term the British public were at all familiar with. Action Man was pretty much indistinguishable from G.I. Joe during the first period of heads with painted hair in black, brown, blonde or red, and only minor differences in detailing and accessories occurred during the first period. Action Man featured a trademarked scar to his right cheek. The styling of these early dolls is a hoot. Intentionally camp or not, the Australian doll has a nod towards Yves Saint Laurent's safari look, and the cricket doll is straight out of Brideshead Revisited. While not quite hands on hips, the stances in the promotional shots are not exactly rugged He-Man either. Later dolls came with flocked hair, nor were the nation's knitters left out. A whole cottage industry of patterns was developed for this figure, in the main taking him further away from the action hero image and closer to a cozy night in by the fire. To see more in this vein, search for 1970s emasculating Action Man knitting patterns on the web. B is for the Bleu Belle. Joshua David McKenney, also known as Pigeon Dolls, made this 16-inch tall articulated resin doll in a limited edition of 30 dolls for the 2018 Modern Doll Collectors Convention. She is the first edition of Doll Bleu, McKenney's second character sculpt. An animated short telling of Bleu Belle's tragic backstory, a fairy tale of love and loss set in New Orleans, can be found on the web, hosted by Dutch Fashion Doll World. B is also for Blythe. The original Blythe doll was created by Alison Katzman in 1972 and sold by the toy company Kenner. Blythe's oversized head and eyes that changed colors with a pull string did not go over well with children. The 4 original dolls were only sold for a year. In 1997, photographer Gina Garan received a Kenner Blythe as a gift and began using the doll to practice her photography skills. After taking thousands of photos of the doll, Garan published her work in a book, This is Blythe. The book was spotted by CWC director and toy producer Junko Wong at an event in New York. Junko knew that this quirky doll would be popular in Japan and sought out the rights to reproduce the doll in Asia. In 2000, CWC produced a television advert featuring a new and improved Blythe doll for the department store Parco. The dolls were an enormous hit in Japan, and 1,000 dolls were produced to meet customer demand. The original doll Parco is a highly sought-after collectible.
Barbie, you're beautiful.
And of course, B is for Barbie. The birth of Miss Barbara Millicent Roberts in March 1959 caused turmoil in the doll market. Barbie was heavily advertised both on TV and in the holiday catalogues of the era, most notably the Sears Wish Book, which was largely printed in black and white. But Mattel featured Barbie prominently on the more desirable color pages. This teenage fashionista made manufacturers realize that their offerings were looking old-fashioned and out of step with the modern shopper. Simply glancing through these pages shows how Barbie quickly evolved from a standalone fashion doll with a handful of fashions to a whole product line. New characters were developed, as well as a vast wardrobe of outfits for them. Structures and playsets were introduced, including the famous Dream House. All kinds of accessories, from cars to boats to an airplane. A veritable miniature world was born from Mattel's star product.
In your little world, everything's a perfect.
C is for Carol Brent. In the early 1960s, following Mattel's runaway success with their 12-inch tall fashion doll Barbie, everyone wanted a piece of the fashion doll action. Ideal Toys' foray into the world of larger fashion dolls gave us the 16-inch tall Carol Brent doll, a tie-in with the 60s designer of the same name. Confusingly, this exact same doll was also marketed by Ideal and named simply Liz. The way Liz came about is an interesting part of doll history. Initially, Ideal created the similarly sized Jackie doll, using the identical body sculpt to Carol, or Liz, right down to her elegantly sculpted fingers. Jackie, however, had a different head, with blue sleep eyes. The doll was launched in 1961 and shown in the company's catalogue for that year. Unfortunately for Ideal, Jackie Kennedy must have been on the catalogue mailing list. An objection from the White House about the unauthorized use of the First Lady's name and style led to the demise of the Jackie doll. Following this debacle, Ideal simply switched out the Jackie head to create a new doll, Liz, also known as Carol Brent. The company even reused some of the fabrics and fashions, although Liz had a racier image than Jackie, and could be seen in skin-tight leopard print capri pants teamed with a hipster-style sweater, as well as a daring bikini. The Tina Cassini doll was Ross Products' attempt to muscle in on the success of Ideal's Tammy. This doll shamelessly Frankensteined Tammy's body with a shrunken head based on Ideal's Liz. The company attributed the doll to Jackie Kennedy's couturier Oleg Cassini, who was married to the actress Jean Tierney, Tina's mother, but avoided litigation by wisely not making any mention of the name of the First Lady. C is also for Cissy. Cissy dolls were first created by Madame Alexander in 1955. The doll became the First Lady of Fashion, winning many awards. Cissy was designed with a womanly physique, jointed for posing possibilities, with moulded feet fashioned for high-heel shoes, and a beautiful face with high cheek colouring and eyeshadow on her open and close eyes. In the 1950s, Cissy dolls were promoted in catalogues and magazines, although never on TV, which Madame Alexander considered a vulgar medium. A likeness of Queen Elizabeth in her coronation gown was created, as well as many clothes and trunk sets. The dolls were dressed in ball gowns and high-fashion ensembles, which included all the accessories, hats, gloves, purses, and jewellery. Cissy dolls' production continues to this day. Over the years, many well-known designers have created outfits for the dolls. Cowgirl Cissy, shown on this page, is a modern doll in a blonde ombre wig from the Three's A Charm box set. She wears a Western-inspired outfit found on eBay. D is for D.A.E's Sandy. D.A.E. Originals began in 1992, redressing Barbie in reproductions and one-of-a-kind outfits, often based on the works of famous designers. In 1997, D.A.E. Originals entered the Jean doll market, redressing her in one-of-a-kind and limited runs of vintage fashions. In 2001, the guys behind D.A.E., David Escobedo and Brian Schaefer, created their first doll, Sandy the Mannequin. Conceptualized as a mini 1940s counter-display, complete with a range of hats, jewelry, and accessories, Sandy was the precursor to the 16-inch tall Vivian fashion doll, again with style rooted in vintage times. Having always wanted to create an original fashion doll, Vivian the Mannequin was created in 2002. In 2005, she was reimagined with a new face and body sculpt, and was joined by her dishy boyfriend, Monty the Mannequin. After a hiatus of several years, Vivian and Monty returned recently, along with their classic fashions of the past, which D.A.E. had always been known for. The latest dolls have fully articulated resin bodies for additional posing opportunities. The Ava Minikin, billed as Vivian's half-sister, was another accessories mannequin, made of resin and planned for 2010, mounted on a round metal base with her solitary hand jointed at the wrist to display a glove and bracelets. The head is fixed. Ava has a long, stylized giraffe neck. She was intended to have her own wig wardrobe to interchange with Vivian. Sadly, Ava remained on the drawing board and never made it into production. Of all the vintage-inspired fashion dolls of this period, D.A.E. has a certain drag aesthetic. This is not entirely surprising, as the guys also create drag couture for real-life full-size drag queens. D is also for Dedo. These odd little dolls were made in Hong Kong in the 1950s and 60s and imported by A.D. Sutton & Sons of New York. They were often given out as carnival prizes. However, as they were flimsy freebies, many ended up in the trash, making them hard to find today. At first sight, many folks find these dolls rather ugly, but to collectors they have charm. The rarity value also means that they can cost silly money to buy. Quite apart from the oversized head, these dolls have a distinctive body shape, with sticky-outy booty and belly. The unusual hands, almost mitts, are simply arms with thumbs. Dedo dolls are 12 inches tall, and some think of them as early precursors of Blythe dolls. The dolls were cheaply made of lightweight, hard plastic, possibly celluloid. Seams are clearly visible because of a reaction between the glue and the plastic over time. The earlier dolls from the 50s have moving, googly eyes, adding to the slightly creepy appeal. Later dolls have cheaper fixed eyes. On some dolls, the eyes have clouded over. As with the Build Lily to Barbie story, these dolls were based on a European original that was then adapted by an American manufacturer. They even have painted on shoes, though not the vertiginous heels of Build Lily. The first Dedos were made in Italy by Mora as Alice of Milano, using a similar maché plastic to Sonia Ottolini dolls. D is for Doug James as well. Somewhere between 1912 and 1925, the Simon & Helbig Company produced a 14¼ lady doll. She had a small number of head variations, but was always on the same body. This was a high-end play doll for children, whose dolls usually consisted of babies, toddlers, and young children. These lady dolls had narrow shoulders, a hint of a bust, a narrow waist, and distinctly womanly hips. Add to that narrow arms with delicate hands and long, slim legs with a narrow, high-heeled foot, and this doll might very well have been viewed as the Barbie of her time. The original dolls had porcelain bisque heads with glass eyes that were on composition bodies. Not many of these original dolls are available to collectors today, possibly because they were play dolls and may have been broken and thrown away. Additionally, it's likely that not many were made in the first place. Doug James wanted to make a version of this doll available to modern collectors. The 1470 dolls are 14¼ inches tall, just like their antique cousins, and their bodies and heads are identical in size and proportion. Unlike the antique dolls, the 1470 dolls have full porcelain bodies. The porcelain bisque body will match the head perfectly, unlike composition, and never stain, fade, yellow, or crack. E is for Elly. These cute little Japanese girls won't break the bank. Do you really need to spend a fortune to fund your fashion doll adventures? I looked at the most inexpensive end of the scale, shopping at the Japanese version of the dollar store, Daiso. All items are priced at $1.50, including the fashion doll, Elly, and each of her outfits. Naturally, you don't get high-end finishes at these prices, but the dolls themselves have an anime charm with surprisingly detailed clothing. Each clothes pack contains shoes and at least one accessory. All of the items purchased for this story, including the furniture, accessories, and outfits, were the result of one trip to Daiso with a bill of less than $50. You can have an adventure on the cheap. F is for Festive Lights, Constance Madsen. The East 59th line features vintage-inspired looks, created by Integrity Toys designer Chris Stokel. The collection takes us back to 1950s New York, with characters from the glamorous worlds of modeling, advertising, and PR. Not influenced by Mad Men at all, obviously. The individual dolls represented newcomers seeking to be discovered, as well as socialites wanting a bigger presence in the high society pages of top fashion magazines. Ruthlessness was the order of the day. This particular doll, Festive Light's Constance Madsen, was introduced in December 2020 as part of the East 59th holiday celebrations. Constance was the Swedish model of the collection, billed as the highly sought-after face of many 1950s high-gloss advertising campaigns. Festive Lights featured a silver embroidered gown with rhinestone accents, glamorous white faux fur coat, silver open-toe sling-back heels with matching clutch purse, an intricate suite of silver jewellery with sapphire-coloured stones, a fashionable hat, and an alternate pair of long, painted gloved hands. G is for Jean. This one-of-a-kind Jean has wig-ready sculpted hair. She is, very likely, based on calendar shot, the first Jean doll with a suntan. Billed as a basic doll when she was released in 2007 by Integrity Toys, she has been rebodied onto a Jamie Show Jean resin body in tan. The outfit, nothing shows off a suntan better than pure white, is an homage to the celebrated main-bochet corset photo by Horst P. Horst. H is for Hua by Ficon. Ficon dolls are limited edition 16-inch tall fashion BJDs from South Korea. Ficon is a portmanteau word combining fashion and icon. These luxury resin dolls embody high fashion and couture as well as casual style. There is a resemblance between Ficon dolls and Mods dolls. Yan Li, the creator of Mods dolls, was originally a member of the Ficon doll team, so the two companies share a certain aesthetic. Sadly, Yan Li does not appear to be producing Mods dolls any longer. Ficon doll is still going strong. This particular doll, Hua, was made in 2017 as a limited run of 30 dolls. I is for Innoquii. The Innoquii are jointed and strung porcelain dolls with long mohair wefts of hair attached with a porcelain plate. The face sculpt is based on the Sybarites DC sculpt. They are 14 inches tall and consist of 14 pieces of porcelain. The edition size of each of the 4 dolls was 300. The line was a one-off. When I interviewed Charles Fagan and Des Lingard in 2009 for Haute Doll magazine, they confirmed that there will be no more Innoquii, sadly. However, porcelain is eternal, and Fagan offered this reassurance. Porcelain is one of the oldest materials for dolls, only predated by wood, and is true to the fashion doll philosophy we live by. Porcelain affords another luxury. Unless dropped or handled incorrectly, the dolls will live forever. The Innoquii feature inset glass eyes, applied eyelashes and hoop earrings. They all have beauty spots on their faces, the super-magnified example covering Traveller's left eye being the most conspicuous. The body of each doll is covered with tattoos. Each doll's tattoo story is unique to her, except the 2 tattoos all 4 dolls share, a heart hidden behind the left ear, and an Innoquii logo on the small of the back. The permanence of the doll's tattoos and facial schemes is achieved through firing the colour onto the porcelain at a temperature somewhere in excess of 1300 degrees Fahrenheit, 704 degrees Celsius. As such, the surface decoration will endure for an unforeseeable span of time, removable only by extreme means. The Innoquii are in the spirit of Build Lily and vintage Barbie dolls, and seem to share the DNA, particularly in the manner of their ponytails attachment technique, as well as the outfits which Traveller and Picnic wear. J is for Just Me. The original Just Me doll was created in 1925 by the Armand Marseille Doll Company in Germany. This 9-inch tall doll was by far the company's most popular, as well as being a competitor of the French Bleuette doll. Just Me was so popular in Europe that the Vogue Doll Company decided to market the doll in the USA. The dolls were imported, and Vogue dressed them. Their heads are marked with the German mould marks. The first Just Me dolls by Vogue had bisque heads and 5-piece composition bodies. These dolls can be expensive to buy now. Inspired by Just Me, the F&B Doll Company created their moulded hair Patsy doll, which was all composition. The body style and facial features were very much like Just Me. Composition dolls were surprisingly durable as play dolls. Patsy was made in many sizes, with 5 as the smallest to 24 as the largest, with many sizes in between. Patsyette, at 9 inches tall, was the closest to Just Me. When hard plastic dolls were made in the 1940s, Just Me's serious expression and tiny rosebud mouth influenced Vogue's Ginny dolls and the Alexanderkin dolls by Madame Alexander, both of which are still popular with collectors. Other companies made similar copycat dolls in the 8-inch size. In recent years, Vogue brought back the Just Me dolls for a while, recreating them in bisque to closely resemble the antique dolls. In 2003, Robert Tonner recreated the Patsy dolls by F&B. These Tonner dolls have the classic slender 5-piece Just Me body with one bent arm and the solemn face with the Cupid's bow mouth. They are faithful reproductions of the vintage Patsy dolls, apart from being made of vinyl. K is for Kyori Sato, the 4th W Club exclusive doll of 2023, redefined luxury Kyori Sato. Looking back to the highly desirable early fashion royalty gift sets, Kyori Sato returns as redefined luxury. Designed by Jessie Ayala, the doll comes with 3 different outfits plus lingerie and a suite of jewelry, presented in a special case that resembles the original gift sets. This set resurrects the Kyori 1 sculpt. Her face screening was based on a brighter side Kyori, a FAO Schwartz exclusive from 2007, and the hairstyle seems like a more refined version of Buena Sera Kyori. Jessie Ayala described it as old money hair. The rest of the contents is a riff on the Ginza Kyori Sato box set. The gown and coat are based on Schiaparelli designs from the Fall 2023 and Spring 2023 Haute Couture collections, respectively. The gown can have the top styled in 2 different ways, with the netting up or down. The suit is a hybrid, with the jacket from Gaultier, the Haute Couture Spring 2023 collection, while the skirt resembles the Versace worn by Anne Hathaway at the Met Gala in 2023, in homage to Karl Lagerfeld. The jewelry is a stunning collection. Also included is a Chanel-style bag, plus boots, pumps, and sunglasses. The set was priced at just shy of $300. But despite the cost, it was almost universally acclaimed by W Club members. L is for Lady Luminous. The Lady Luminous range was highly sought after when first introduced. The dolls had high production values and their outfits were exquisitely tailored for the time. This line was aimed squarely at the Japanese market, but really took off when Lady L was discovered by US and European collectors. She was first launched in 1988 and was noted for her lifelike proportions, scaled to those of a real fashion model. Her head was modelled at 1/6 of the size of the body, which follows the human form. This made Lady Luminous look much less doll-like than her contemporaries. Most dolls have heads which are somewhat oversized, clearly obvious in Bratz dolls, for example, but even Jean and Tyler have heads slightly too big for their bodies, compared to people. This does give the larger-than-life appeal that doll manufacturers have long adopted, but which was eschewed by the designers of this lady. In the early days, Takara was reluctant to sell Lady Luminous outside Japan. Its view was that US and European customers would not pay the required price for this level of quality. In this sense, the doll was a trailblazer and opened the gates to the high-quality dolls we know and love today. Whether the newest, more exclusive, high-production value dolls such as Fashion Royalty, Jean, and the Sybarites would have succeeded without the pioneering work of Lady Luminous is a debatable question. M is for Madsen. The 2024 Stilettos Out convention featured Constance Madsen from the East 59th line as Agent Sugar North. This year, Integrity Toys returned to an in-person convention instead of the pandemic-induced virtual events that ran from 2020 onward. Unfortunately, due to a port workers' strike, combined with hurricanes on the US East Coast, only prototype dolls were on display. No dolls were available at the event. Instead, they would ship later. This lovely version of Constance has a film noir vibe. She has perhaps just murdered her cheating husband and is coolly trying to get away with it. M is also for Monica. Monica of Hollywood, a doll that evokes the glamour of the golden age of cinema. This doll's looks are presumed to be inspired by the likeness of Monica Bannister, a little-known actress today, who appeared in the 1933 movie Mystery of the Wax Museum. The doll certainly shares this starlet's smouldering eyes and distinctive Cupid's bow lips. Mrs. Hansi Scher, originally from Germany, created the dolls in 1941. Monica was quite unique. Unlike any other doll available at that time, they were manufactured for only 10 years, until 1951, by the Monica Doll Studios of Hollywood, CA. The first dolls appeared in the 1941 Toys and Novelties magazine. Mrs. Scher's great innovation was to root real human hair directly into the composition material of the dolls' heads. Although nowadays rooted hair is a commonplace feature of vinyl dolls, this was the first time that dolls' hair had been inserted this way. Monica dolls are not marked at all, but the rooting and the distinctive face paint makes them easily identifiable. It was important to Mrs. Scher that the hair had more versatility than with the traditional glued-on wigs. She was keen that the dolls would offer as much play value as possible. Monica's locks could be combed, curled, and finger-waved. Human hair in shades of blonde, brunette, black, and auburn was used. Monica is jointed at the neck, shoulders, and hips. The third and fourth fingers are moulded together, and the nails are painted red. The feet are flat, which allows the dolls to stand more easily. As opposed to the later teenage dolls with high heel feet, the composition used for the dolls' heads is of a much finer quality than that used for the bodies. It does, however, craze very easily. A range of sizes was available to purchase, ranging from 11 to 24 inches. Although the dolls are universally known as Monica today, it seems that they were given different names according to their height. Other characters introduced in 1942 as 17-inch dolls were known as Veronica, Joan, and Rosalind. It is thought that these were depictions of Veronica Lake, Joan Crawford, and Rosalind Russell, some of the top film stars of the era. N is for Nisbet, Peggy Nisbet's Oliver dolls. Peggy Nisbet, who lived from 1909 to 1995, was a renowned British toy designer and doll maker, known for her intricate and detailed creations. By 1952, Peggy had begun her doll-making business in Weston-super-Mare in the United Kingdom. Over the course of her career, Nisbet became one of the most respected doll makers in the world, creating dolls that are highly prized by collectors and toy enthusiasts alike. To celebrate Lionel Bart's movie Oliver, based on the Dickens novel Oliver Twist, a whole cast of central characters was created by Peggy Nisbet. From left to right, Fagin, Ron Moody, the Artful Dodger, Jack Wilde, Nancy, Shani Wallis, Mr. Bumble, Harry Seacombe, Bill Sykes, Oliver Reed, and Oliver Twist himself, Mark Lester. The sculpts were loosely based on the likenesses of the actors in the movie, with varying degrees of success. O is for Ottolini. Sonia Ottolini is a rare beauty from Italy. She shows off mid-century fashions to perfection. Sonia is a noteworthy doll from the late 1950s and early 60s, made at the Ottolini factory in Milan. She was created using maché plastic, which consists of a light coating of plastic over a papier-mâché or cardboard base. This material can resemble celluloid, but it is not so brittle or thin. They are big dolls. Sonia is 25 inches tall and has a passing, though probably not accidental, resemblance to Jackie Kennedy, except for the striking blue flirty eyes. Impeccably dressed, the dolls had beautifully tailored outfits, using fine wool, silk, and cotton fabrics. P is for Paul Pham. The Numina dolls are made by Paul Pham for his company Dolls. They are 16-inch tall, couture dolls, sculpted in resin, with a careful balance between jointing and aesthetics. Paul Pham creates these dolls from his base in Manchester, Connecticut. The Dolls name is from the Latin dulcis, which means pleasing or delightful to the senses. To be clear, Dolls is the company name, and the Numina are the dolls created for Dolls. Since the first of the Numina dolls was introduced in 2008, their prolific creator has made an astonishing number of these articulated beauties. We are going to see just a sampling of the many Numina dolls. They are typically produced in very limited quantities, sometimes in editions of as many as 75, but often as just a single doll. The names of the dolls frequently provide interesting backstories in their own right. Let's take a look at some of the gorgeous faces of Paul Pham's creations. P is also for Petitcollin, a French doll from the 1960s made by Petitcollin, uncommonly tall at 16 inches. These dolls are more usually found at half this height. In common with Build Lily dolls of a similar era, this doll features legs with moulded-on high heels painted black, in an antique gown with buttoned camisole fashioned from fine ecru wool, featuring hand-finished tatting at the hem and herringbone overstitching. In daywear, she wears a simple black shirt dress in cotton batiste. P is for Poppy Parker. Here are 2 Poppy Parker dolls in yellow, dressed for either day or night. On the left, Poppy Parker models a look from Jason Wu's Spring 2021 collection. This doll for 2023 features freckles and flocked hair. These are both firsts for Miss Parker. Lemon Lullaby was 2023's yellow variant of the original Powder Puff Poppy, released as a lottery doll in the 2016 Bon Bon collection. This is the 3rd colour variant. There was a pink one as a giveaway in the 2019 Poppy Parker event. Unlike the previous 2 Plato Parker teddy bears, this latest one is smiling ominously. The chair is a 1/6 scale model of the Poang chair made by IKEA. Q is for Queen of Drag. Billy with a trio of drag dolls. Disco Bunny Billy, a one-of-a-kind doll, is joined by RuPaul Foxy Lady, by Jason Wu for Integrity Toys with microphone and original outfit. The It's a Boy drag queen doll is by Arsenic and Apple Pie from their Trailer Trash range. Channeling Marilyn Monroe, but not in a good way. The Manila doll wears the spaghetti dress from RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars, not to be confused with Barbie, and based on Manila Luzon with the signature white hair streak and her crossed eyes. From the Pineapple Couture collection in a dress by Marco Marco, very loosely inspired by D.A.E, who rarely used checked tablecloths, spaghetti and meatballs in his designs. R is for running a Ryokan. Fashion Doll Agency of Paris is a group of doll models originally created by Nunzio Carbone and Jairo Bustamante. The dolls are high fashion, yet enigmatic. Their expressions are neutral and impressionistic. An elusive spirit exists in the faces of the Fashion Doll Agency girls. There is a sophistication in the way their features are simply realized with confident strokes and a carefully chosen palette of colors. Their finely sculpted faces are exemplified in Kaori, the model recruited to FDA from Japan. This doll, Kaori Tokyo, is a one-of-a-kind made by Nunzio Carbone in 2010, with a geisha-inspired face-up and mohair wig. Her outfit is a modern spin on traditional Japanese clothing, using key fabrics sourced in Japan. Kaori is running a Ryokan in Ryugasaki in a desperate attempt to conform to the R theme. With an excess of volume in the shapes and scale of voluminous headgear and puff dresses, this Fashion Doll Agency collection is a true hymn to Japanese culture and to Tokyo. S is for Sylvie Vartan. The 17-year-old Sylvie Vartan sprang to fame in France in 1961, following her appearance on TV performing the song Pain d'Essence with French rocker Frankie Jordan. This French pop princess went on to have a string of her own hits in the yeye style of pop. Her marriage to the French rock star Johnny Hallyday cemented the status of the couple in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The entertainer's iconic status led to the launch of the Sylvie Vartan doll in 1977 by Poupée Reynal of France. A unique sculpt was developed by the manufacturer for the head, but the body is identical to the one used by Mego for the Cher and Farrah dolls, amongst others. It's not clear what the licensing arrangement was with Mego, but from Reynol's point of view, it was probably cheaper to take this route than to manufacture a brand new body from scratch. The Reynal factory was established around 1930, but the manufacturer specialized in baby and child dolls and lacked the expertise to produce a fashion doll. The choice of the Mego body, makes this unusual doll even more idiosyncratic. It was arguably not the most beautiful body on the market at the time, being somewhat angular, with hands that have been described as claw-like, but it does have a vintage charm, and works well with the finely chiseled face sculpt the company created. The doll has rooted eyelashes and strikingly pale eyebrows. However, the use of the Mego body has the benefit of allowing this doll to wear clothing and shoes from Cher's extensive wardrobe. Quite a bonus, because Reynolds produced a limited range of only 12 Sylvie Vartan outfits. Nowadays these clothes are expensive and even harder to find than the doll herself. She is a niche collector favourite. Recently, some collectors have seen a similarity in looks between the Sylvie Vartan doll and the actor Kate Jackson as Sabrina Duncan in the 1970s TV show Charlie's Angels. There has been speculation, with no evidence, that the head was originally intended for a Kate doll in the wake of Mego's success with the Farrah doll. To illustrate the point, toy collectors' headquarters created their own makeover. A brave choice, as the Sylvie doll is not inexpensive. T is for Tommy. JHD Dolls, designed by Zhao Huadong, were launched in 2020 as the companion dolls to his successful Mizzy doll line. Not exactly boyfriend material, at least not for Mizzy. These dolls have a muscular, gay fantasy figure aesthetic. Tommy Lee is one of the 3 neon jungle dolls, also of 2020. Styled as Lost in Tokyo, it's not clear whether he stumbled out into the street in his pyjamas or if someone has run up some daywear from a pair of curtains. Just so he doesn't forget his brand name, it's helpfully inscribed on his bag. U is for unconventional. Are some of your dolls not typical beauties? Let's check out a few of the more cosmetically challenged dolls. The underdogs of the doll world have always held a certain fascination. Those dolls who are perhaps less fortunate in the looks department, the ugly stepsisters, the ones that unkind people might just call butt ugly. I prefer to think of it as the beauty of imperfection. Any doll with character will find a place in my collection. It's a welcome relief from the bland and the anodyne out there. Actors such as Betty Davis and Maria Casares were hardly classical beauties, but it doesn't stop us from loving them any the less. It's easy to gravitate toward the perfect Greek god-good looks of Paul Newman or Ursula Andress, but let's not overlook the more interesting faces out there. The filmmaker Pedro Almodovar actively sought out players with unconventional looks for his movies, most notably the wonderful Rossi de Palma, whose aquiline features have served her well both on the screen and the catwalk. The French coined the ideal term, jolie laide, which has the cumbersome translation of attractive, though not conventionally beautiful. It is definitely not the literal translation of pretty ugly. France itself has provided us with plenty of jolie laide types, including Jeanne Moreau, Anouk Aimée, Coco Chanel, Beatrice Dalle, and Charlotte Gainsbourg. On the other hand, Jackie Kennedy, Audrey Hepburn, and Sophia Loren are all widely considered to be great beauties, yet none of them have truly conventional, perfectly symmetrical features or cookie-cutter measurements. As for chic, which doesn't have a literal English translation and is hard to define and pinpoint, jolie laide remains elusive, which is part of the reason for its lasting charm and mystique. V is for Venus Rising. A special Jason Wu doll for the 20th anniversary of the W Club, Venus Rising Eugenia Perrin-Frost, a made-to-order doll, which is rare for a Wu doll. She uses the original colour palette of the ultra-limited Venus lingerie doll, made in an edition of only 100, through the Venus Secret Lingerie shop in Taiwan. The doll wears a miniaturized version of a gown from Wu's Spring 2013 collection. The new doll has the same screening as the original one, with a different hairstyle and hair color. The original had loosely waved, black hair, but the same skin tone. W is for Wanda the Wonder Frog. Wanda the Wonder Frog is made by Studio U. This diminutive doll is about 6 inches tall and has attained something of a cult following. She is available in many different colorways, with new editions often selling out rapidly. Self-consciously odd, this little frog has a definite charm. With thanks to Pat Weller, this green wonder was originally part of her collection. She arrived in a beautiful hand-knitted dress made by Pat. Wanda is Wonder Frog's main character. The Wonder Frogs are described as frog fairies that live in Noel Forest. Basic Wanda is green, with a froggy face and a human-like body. The current storyline suggests that Wanda is on a journey with her best friend, Tootsie Pine, a snail with legs. Wanda has basic posability. Her arms, legs, and waist rotate. Her ball-jointed neck allows her head to rotate and tilt, to suggest a surprisingly wide range of expressions. The popularity of Wanda has spawned a whole industry of clothing and accessory makers on Etsy and other secondary market sites. XYZ. Admirers of Miss Revlon and Cissy love their fab 50s fashions, but they can be costly. So here's the prettiest brunette doll, marked 14R, on the back of the neck to denote a head mold commonly used by many 1950s manufacturers such as Royal Dolls, Deluxe Redding, and E.G. for about 1/10 of the price of a comparable Miss Revlon. Using a dress pattern for the 14-inch Lisa Little Chap doll by Remco in Johanna Gast Anderton's excellent book Sewing for 20th Century Dolls, enlarged to fit an 18-inch doll, to tie in with the alphabetic theme, the bodice was created from our own design, printed onto store-bought paper-backed fabric. The result was a great contrast for the bodice and sleeves of the dress. And so, that's it. Let's take a look at some of the fabulous dolls we've seen today.